Hope everybody's doing well this evening.
Hey, Patty.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, I just got off the LAHD thing. Learned some interesting stuff to share.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear about it.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. You're like, no.
Yeah. Very interesting things that I didn't know that you'll
Okay.
probably want to share with people next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to share them with us tonight?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
And I took some screenshots, so I'll end up emailing them to you so you'll have them.
Do
And
you
they're
guys
gonna
hear?
they're gonna send me the slides also.
Okay. Do you guys hear a whole bunch of background noise, or no, it's okay?
I don't hear anything.
Of course, now they're quiet. My entire family is coming for dinner tonight. So I have a feeling it's going to get loud and I'm going to have to move into my room and shut the door. So one of you please tell me it's time to move and I'll know what that means, okay? All right. And here comes my dog. Out. All right. I'm excited to hear what you learned from the LAHD meeting. I have an article that's coming out, so you guys keep your eyes open for it. Can you hear that background noise? Or no?
Yes.
Okay, I need to move then. Give me a minute. Thank you guys for telling me. I really appreciate. All right, we're gonna go move. We're gonna mosey. I just got to get my cocktail for the conversation, right? And now you guys are gonna go wonky. So let me just do this so that you don't see. Now you're looking at a picture of me, right? Okay, hang on. We're moving.
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't want you guys to be looking at the floor and the dog and my armpit and everything else while I move into a place that's a little more quiet. All right. God love my kids. They're annoying. All right. Anybody on here tonight that was not on this afternoon? Let me know.
Me.
You, Arlene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to see who we have and who we don't have. We may not have a lot this evening, and I'm okay with that. Okay, we are now in quiet way. Believe it or not. There we go. Hey, everybody.
So you want to hear some of the changes?
Yep.
For RSO relocation assistance?
Fire them away. RSO
Okay,
relocation assistance. Youch. Okay, I'm taking notes, girl.
Started July 1st, 2024, and it's good through June of 30th, 2025.
Hold on. July 1st, 24 to June 30th, 25. Got it.
Yeah. So they've raised the amounts for tenants eligible versus qualified.
Okay.
So the numbers have changed. I'll email this to you, Patty, so you don't have to write it down.
Okay.
But the other thing that has changed is the mom and pop clause.
Okay.
It used to be 4 units or less. It's no longer that.
What is it?
It's now for only for owner or family occupancy evictions of units owned by natural persons who own no more than 4 dwelling units and 1 single family dwelling, which they didn't have before, on a separate lot in the city of LA. Now, the other caveat is that you cannot have, cannot have, sorry, hold on one second.
If these people lost their mind, I'm just saying.
Cannot have used this fee in the last 3 years, and a family member cannot own residential property in the city. Those are caveats that were not in the past, to my knowledge.
Correct. And what is your take on these new rules?
Well, so in other words, you can probably have your primary residence and a fourplex.
And
Whereas
be,
before we used to say it was a triplex and a single family gave you the 4. That's not apparently not the case anymore. So it sounds like you can have 2 duplexes and a single family, but that you can only use the moving a family member in once every 3 years, and that you can't, and that person, if I understand it, is that person can't own, and the family member who's being moved in can't own a property in the city of LA.
that's just insane.
So I think that's a big difference from what it's been.
No, I would completely agree with that.
So
Big difference from where we've already been with Larso. That's not good.
yeah, so that's, and then again, and the dollar amounts have gone up. Single families are still 1 month's rent, but mom and pops are $9,900 and $19,950.
Oh my God, that's still too much.
So that's eligible versus qualified. And less than 3 years is 10,300 and 21,750. And if they're there more than 3 years, 13,500 and 25,700. The other thing that I learned that I did not know is that I had always been told that you can't do cash for keys for RSO. And apparently that's not completely true.
That's not completely true. You just have to meet their guidelines.
It just can't be for eviction. You could do cash for keys if you're doing Ellis or something.
Yes.
Which I didn't know. I thought it was just period. So it was my misunderstanding.
No, you can do cash for keys in Larso. You just have to meet their criteria. They have up to 45 days to rescind the offer. They have time to allow an attorney to look at it. It has to be written in their primary language, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of rules that go with it, but it is allowed.
Okay, so
that's insane. As they adjust, and don't laugh at me, okay, you guys? As they adjust LA City's guidelines to be more restrictive, we can expect to see the same thing happen in the county. Arlene, also on June 1st or July 1st, I forgot the date, but I had just heard of this. Remember how for RSO, we have to put the how many bedrooms are in the unit on a 3-day pay rent or quit?
correct.
We also have to put what the threshold amount is.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Okay, and that happened as of June or July. So I have a question, okay? And this is me and you talking. Okay. Everybody else is just eavesdropping, right? Just go with it. Are they doing that so that they can monitor how many of us are under threshold and how many of us are over?
Well, but they already have rent registry, so they know.
Yeah, no, I got you. But now what are they trying to do? Are they going to, what I'm trying to say is now are they going to utilize that to their advantage, opposing counsel in court? Look how much over the rent threshold this property is. It's not worthy of this rent amount. Well, you see what I mean? It's creating an argument, I think. But what do I know?
A lot.
I'm just guessing it's creating an argument that we're not going to like. my tripod's stuck. Hang on, folks. I know you're getting sick of me. Oh, by the way, I'm like right in the middle of this photo you guys see right here. Just so you know. It's me on a postcard. Sorry, that's where I went on vacation. It was wonderful. I hope we're having cocktails in our conversation. Mine is grapefruit soda this evening. Nothing crazy. So, hello, good evening. Welcome to Widget's Way Cocktails and Conversation, where we sit and talk about whatever we need to talk about regarding property management, the state of the current rules that govern us, or whatever we want to discuss that's somewhat related to our industry. Okay. For those of you that missed the webinar today, we talked about a lot of things. It all is tied in with the webinar, with Agla's webinar yesterday. There's things that we need to know and need to be aware of because they're happening right here in our own backyards. And we need to understand how, why, and what's going on. If we all take out our California driver's license and we look at it, if we applied for a real ID, in the top right-hand corner is California's golden bear, right? That means they're a real ID, real ID, real American cheese, okay? If it says federal limits apply, then they didn't apply for the real ID, or they don't qualify because they're not an American citizen. Paying attention yet? Okay, we need to know these things. These things are important. And I am not saying that everybody that says federal limits apply is an immigrant. That didn't come out of my mouth, because currently mine says that because I didn't apply for the real ID. Now that I understand what the government is using that for, it makes a little more sense to me. I wondered why they were making a real ID. It's so they can tell if you're an American or not. They say they're documenting the immigrants that are coming over. They're giving them state issued IDs and driver's licenses. That's how they're documenting them. Okay, it's the federal hold and federal limits apply, and the state seal that separates the two. That applies for New York. This is across the nation, not just in California. Okay, keep that in mind. If you have someone that you know is an immigrant, and we cannot discriminate based on national origin, meaning it doesn't matter what country they come from. That's not a reason we can discriminate from them. If they don't meet our criteria, different set of facts, but we can't just say we don't rent to you unless you have a real ID. That would be discriminatory. Make sense? So we can't do anything about it, but what we can do is view the property more often. Okay, twice a year isn't enough when you have something that may explode in your face. We're seeing a lot of them modify the property and turn them into several unit apartments and rent to other immigrants, because people seeking asylum get quite a bit of money from our government to house them on a daily basis. They've learned how to make our own money against us. Yikes. So we need to be cautious and careful of who we're renting to, and make sure that we're, can I tell you guys a secret? This is what I learned in my career. A tenant that pays their rent on time and never calls you and never reports any repairs, that is a red flag. That is a huge problem. How are they living in a property and not having any repairs? They're having plenty of repairs. They don't want you coming over there. They don't want anyone coming over there. If nobody has repairs, they pay their rent on time, they're hiding. Okay? Don't forget that. It's a trick. Mm. They're hiding. You can't even live in a house with brand new construction for 5 years and not have a single repair. It's just not going to happen. Doesn't exist. So watch out for your tenant that takes care of all their own issues, does all their own repairs, doesn't want you in the property is what you need to hear. Not how great they're making it for you, because they could be making it in a crap hole and you don't even know because you haven't been in there. No news is good news, right? Not with your investment property. No news is a problem. If somebody's living there, things are breaking, trust me. And either they're fixing them on their own or they don't want you in the property. Why do they not want you in the property? What are they doing they're not supposed to? Remember, I always go in twice a year as a minimum. Spring forward and fall back when we change our time on our clock is a good reminder to remind us that we need to go check the property. Why? Because it happens twice every year, twice a year. So it's just the theory that I use is when the time changes, that's when I need to go serve my notices that I'm coming in to do a preventative maintenance inspection. And it's just my way of kind of bebopping around the whole situation and handling it in a manner that I can remember and keep track of. So a lot of times it'll sneak up on me and I'll be like, oh no, we need to do the time change. So I'm getting the time change all together, got the time change going on, and whammo, bammo. Oh yeah, I need to go inspect my properties. Almost forgot. So that's my reminder, and how I remember is spring forward, fall back. You better go do your inspections at least twice a year. I did talk about Arlene earlier today, and she has no idea, but I'm going to tell her myself. I've always told you guys a story about how 15 years ago, a tenant moved in and 3 days later, 2 or 3 days later, they called me and said, hey, Patty, I just want to let you know that our dog was killed by a rattlesnake this morning. Crap. Talk about squeezing your cheeks and wondering what your responsibilities are and what your liability is scary thoughts. I mean, don't get me wrong. You didn't put that rattlesnake in that yard, right? But you also didn't tell that tenant that that rattlesnake might be there. Hear me out, okay? Arlene had an issue a couple days ago. Tenant calls her and says, hey, I'm getting upset about this. This isn't the first time this happened. My dog keeps getting skunked by a skunk. And this is in LA, city of LA, okay? What we need to do to help protect ourselves is disclose to the tenants that there's animals that are indigenous to this area. What does that mean? It means the animals were here before the people were. We can't do anything about that. You know, and these animals from time to time can become a pest or a nuisance. Why am I telling you about it? Because animal control doesn't even do anything about it. If you call animal control and tell me you have a skunk problem, they're going to say, well, we can come catch them, but we're going to release them in the same area. They're just going to come back. So what you need to do is disclose to your tenant that those animals were here long before people were, and that we don't have to, that we can't take responsibility for these animals that were here before we were. And from time to time, they can become a nuisance or a pest or something of the like. So please don't leave your food out. Don't leave water out. Don't leave things that attract them. Remember, these are wild animals. They eat other animals' feces. I know that's disgusting, but it's reality. So you want to have them pick up their dog poop immediately and try to keep their yards as clean as possible. There's other things that they can do as a deterrent, especially if they figure out how they're getting in through fencing, etc. But in all fairness, a skunk has its route. It knows where it can go get some food or some veggies or whatever it is. There's a skunk that comes through my sister's yard every night, goes through at about sundown and goes back through at about 2 a.m. Her dog now won't go out the door if my sister yells skunk because she doesn't want a bath in the middle of the night. What I'm trying to say to you guys is, don't wait for that moment where you're squeezing your cheeks and your eyeballs are bugging out of your head at what your tenant's telling you because you're scared about what your responsibilities and what your liabilities are until it happens. Do something about it now. We can't control if a possum gets in the tenant's engine compartment of their car and rips out all the electrical wiring, right? Don't we want to disclose that to them so that we're not responsible? Hello? It's just another way to protect yourself, and it is now on Widgets Way's website under tools. We do need to add a couple of things to it, though. We need to add some kind of fowl or birds because they can also become a nuisance. Pigeons, crows, etc. They can start nesting in the eaves of a property. We've all seen it. And then I learned that a flock of crows is called a murder of crows. And there's a house near mine, probably about a block away or so. And all the neighborhood crows roost on their house every night. And there's probably about 30 to 50 of them on their roof. It's really weird. Animals have consistencies. They have patterns. I'm sure that those owners of that house don't want the crows on their roof every night, but they are. So we have to keep in mind that these animals can become a nuisance or a pest at any time. And if we didn't disclose about it during the lease, it doesn't make us look great when we try to disclose about it after it happens. So what I'm trying to say, and Arlene's going to agree with me, is implement that on all your properties across the board. When you have a vacant unit, put that in there. I'm warning you about animals indigenous to the area. I mean, what happens if a tenant's kid gets bit by a raccoon? You didn't tell me there were raccoons here. Can you imagine? This is your opportunity to just close that and shut another door that may be a way for you to be attacked. That's all I'm offering. I'm trying to help make sure that we're all protecting our assets to the best of our abilities. That's all. Does anybody have questions for me tonight?
Patty, on this same topic, when I bought my primary residence, we bought from investors and they said, since we didn't live here, we don't know what condition the house can be in and we're not responsible for that. So if I'm not aware, because these are my rental properties and I am not, I've never lived there, so I don't know of any indigenous animals that could be an issue. Couldn't we say that? Like if something happens with a rattlesnake, it's like, well, I don't know that. It's never been brought to my attention before. Is that, I mean, also,
absolutely. But the way my addendum is written says something along the lines of this, okay? And don't quote me to it, just go look on the website. But it basically says this document is to inform you that there were animals that are indigenous to this area. They may from time to time become a pest or a nuisance. We strongly suggest that you don't leave out food, water, or animal feces because this could attract said nuisances from animals that are indigenous to this area. And because they're indigenous to this area, that landlord has no control over it. So please be aware that these animals, again, could become a nuisance or a pest. And then I list these animals could be, but are not limited to. Oh, and we're naming coyotes, bobcats, mountain lions, possums, fowl, which is birds, right? We have snakes. You get what I mean? So we're trying to throw quite a bit of it at it, but not everything, because we're saying included but not limited to. So that's just notifying them. It could be a squirrel that causes the problem. Just because it's not on the list doesn't mean it doesn't count. I took care of that. Does that make sense, Julia?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So in other words, I listed everything that I could possibly think of, but now that I sit here and think about it, there's a couple more things we need to add. With that being said, it could be wild rodents. That would cover from a squirrel to a possum to a badger. Okay, so rodents, reptiles, vermin. I mean, we could just go on and on and on and on. Insects. But it's what I'm trying to tell you guys is it's another way to help protect our asset. And it sucks. You can ask Arlene when your tenant comes to you and goes, well, I just wanted to let you know I'm really sick of this problem happening. And you're like, oh, you didn't tell me there were skunks in the city of LA. You didn't tell me there were raccoons here. It's just easier to say that there could be could be. I didn't say there was. I said there could be animals indigenous to the area that may or may not become a pest or a nuisance during your residency. I mean, these are all good verbiage that we could use in order to create the document. But what we're trying to do is let them know that those animals were here way before people were. Okay. That's what indigenous to the area means. It means they lived in that area. They live there. Okay, so that's how it helps protect you. It does not help protect you from the two-legged animals that live there. Sorry. And I am only drinking grapefruit soda, I promise. All right, anybody else have anything?
I have a quick question. For a asbestos inspection, my understanding is that they come and they do an air test and then don't they send that out or something? Like they don't give you an instant report right then? No? Yes, no?
It's not an air test. Usually asbestos, number one place that you can count on asbestos being is in a popcorn ceiling. The number two place you can count on asbestos being in is 1950s, 60s, and 70s floor tiles. You know, those old cake ones that look like they baked them in the oven. They were in your great grandpa's workshop. Remember? They're pink and they got gray marks in them. Some of them are white and gray. And they just look like these chalky baked biscuit tiles. You know what I'm talking about? Very porous looking. Those are asbestos tiles. So usually you're going to get asbestos in the ceiling and in the flooring. It's usually where asbestos comes in. Sometimes we see it in the insulation, but not as much anymore.
So a quote unquote inspector can just come into a unit and look, and if they don't see those two things, they say there's no asbestos?
I didn't say that. They actually take samples. Usually it's physical samples, not air samples.
Right, but if there's no popcorn ceiling and there's no tiles, what would they sample?
They
Walls?
could sample the air, but you're not going to get an accurate reading.
Uh-huh.
They call, when you have asbestos or you have lead in a property, they call it a hot spot. Okay. Usually the ceiling is a hot spot. Usually flooring in a bathroom or a kitchen is hot spot because that's where they use those tiles back in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s. They didn't put them throughout the house, but they did use them extensively. Okay. With all that said, those are usually your hot spots with that. With lead-based paint, honestly, it could be anywhere. And one of the worst places I ever saw lead-based paint, I wanted to cry. But at the time, all I had to do was disclose that it was there. Under current law, that's still all I have to do. In fact, I'm not required to abate it unless someone gets ill. What? Okay, let me tell you where you can find lead-based paint. Obviously, you can find it on interior and exterior of any property built prior to 1978, right? Want to know where the worst place I found it was? In the tile. They used lead-based paint to make tiles. You know how you tile a bathroom? So I'm having to tell people that there's lead-based paint in the tile in the bathroom. You know, in the shower enclosure and on the bathroom counter. It's not the only counter that had lead-based paint poisoning. They also used it in the tile on the kitchen counter. Ouch. Where do you prepare your food? Lead-based paint is poisonous when ingested or inhaled. Want me to keep talking? All I was required to do was notify him that it was there. How scary is that? Ouch. All right. Anybody have anything else? Because you guys are getting to pick my brain. You pick away, baby. Pick away. Nobody? Are we going to end our cocktails and conversation at 7:30 and I'm going to go have a nice dinner with my fam? My son didn't know that I was doing cocktails and conversation this evening. So he invited I have both my sons here, my daughter, my future daughter-in-law, and my nephew. And everybody's here for dinner. Why? Mom's back in town. All right, everybody, nobody's,
Quick
oh,
question. I have a
go
quick
ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
And that lead-based paint, does it matter if you have a minor, like an infant?
Okay,
Is
ask me one more time. In lead-based
Like on
paint,
yes, do you have to do anything? Like if you know that is there, do you have, is it required by law that the landlord do anything about it since if an infant lives there?
let me explain, okay?
Mhm.
Lead-based paint files, when they're tested positive for lead-based paint, are required to be turned into the EPA. So lead-based paint is something you never want to lie about because they're gonna know. It's public record, okay? So in the event you ever have work done and they test your exterior eaves and say, hey, those are lead-based paint, and you got to treat it this way and you got to do that, the EPA already knows about it, okay? So you always want to be open and honest anytime you're faced with lead-based paint. Here's what I've had happen. I have always had properties tested that were pre-1978 because I want to disclose to that tenant where the problem is. I also want to know as the property manager, because in the event I order work at that property, I need to know what's affected by lead paint and what is not, because the disruption of lead-based paint can get you sued quickly. Okay. Lead-based paint poisoning in children shows different signs than it does in adults. In adults, the signs and symptoms of lead-based paint poisoning will shock you. Are you ready? Are you ready? Lead-based paint poisoning in adults shows high blood pressure and lack of sex drive. Did I just describe half the country? That's scary shit if those are the symptoms. Okay, paying attention. All you're required to do is disclose to them where it is in the property. But remember, I also want to know so that if I have to send a plumber over there and they have to replace a shower valve and bust through a wall, I can tell them, don't disrupt the tile. They're full of lead-based paint. You need to set up containment. You cannot disrupt the tile in the shower. See what I mean? Once you know where it is, it's much easier for you to combat it, for you to deal with it. By law, all you're required to do is disclose where the lead-based paint was found. It doesn't mean you have to remedy it unless someone gets sick. Let me explain. If you have lead-based paint on the exterior of your eaves, bye Arlene, thank you. If you have lead-based paint on your exterior of your eaves, small children and or adults aren't going to be out there ingesting or inhaling those lead-based paint chips. They're up on the eaves, right? Who cares? You're not required to mitigate it unless someone gets ill. Okay? I hope that helps you.
Thank you.
So if they come back and they say, hey, Patty, We're doing some renovations on your house. We tested, you have a hot spot in the living room. It's the asbestos ceiling. We're gonna go ahead and scrape that. Hey, they just eliminated my problem. They eliminated the hot spot. Got it? So I'm gonna allow them to do that time. And then other times they're gonna tell me you also have lead-based paint on the exterior eaves of this property on the northern side and the southern side, but not on the eastern side. Remind you, that test just went to the EPA. I don't want to lie or fail to disclose because all I'm required to do is disclose where it is. I'm not required to mitigate it unless someone becomes ill. And 90% of the time, it's not adults that are suffering from lead-based paint poisoning because, as you just heard, the symptoms for it are very broad. Your problem with lead poisoning comes from children, small children, usually age 5 and under. They're the ones.
Sorry, who would I get to check the property? I know that Section 8, like with housing, I believe I read somewhere where it says that if I wanted them to come or they were offering free lead paint testing. I don't know if I read that right.
If you want them to come test your unit, and then you need to disclose going forward where it is, if it's there, or if you don't know of any. We should all be disclosing if we don't know of any, or yes, I know it's here and this is where it is.
Yeah, I usually disclose that I don't know of any.
Right, and they're offering to test it for you. Why do you think that is?
They're trying to make sure.
They want to see who has lead paint and who doesn't, because then they're going to start asking if kids are sick, and then they're going to want to start us to mitigate it.
Is it advisable to do it?
If someone gets sick, you have to mitigate the damages.
Would it be advisable to get it tested before, or should we just wait? Because I don't know of any lead paint in my units. I've never been told that there's lead
I
paint.
usually test the units when they become vacant. I usually don't test a unit that's tenant occupied. Could you? Yeah. But does it sometimes arise a false message and telling them, hey, you could get sick, there might be lead here? You know what I mean? I don't want to send any of those messages to somebody that's already in possession of the unit. I don't like to give them ammunition.
Very smart. Thank you.
In other words, I don't want to tip them off that there's an issue. Can I teach you another secret? And everybody pay attention, okay? Another thing I do when a property goes vacant is I have it tested for bed bugs. And if the exterminator will give me in writing that on that day, at that time, there was no known bed bugs in the property, and then 6 months from now or 2 years from now, if that tenant then brings bed bugs into the property, I have the document that saves my asset from that expense. Oh.
Very smart.
So there's a couple of things that I do when a property goes vacant, and there's a lot of other people out there that do them, but I guarantee you they're not sharing that with you guys. So that's my tip and trick to you. It's how you put that expense back on the tenant at a later date. And let's face it, bed bugs are easy to catch and they're expensive to get rid of. It's not a bill I want to play with.
So Patty, can you go over everything that you do when it is vacant? So you get it to the whole lead-based paint and then bed bugs. Do you also like fumigate? Like what else do you?
I don't fumigate unless I need to. Usually when people move out, the cockroaches move in. Once you clean and spray the unit, and you may have to do it a couple of times, and water bugs will even move in with no people there. Doesn't mean the unit has cockroaches, it's just what happens. So I always check a unit prior to a tenant coming. If they meet me and they're like, hi, I got here before you, I'll tell them, just wait here for a minute, let me turn the alarm off and make sure that the property's secure. And what I do is I shut the door behind me and lock it, and then I go around and make sure there's no bugs on the floor, that the place looks okay, and nobody broke into it. Let's be honest. But yes, I have a whole course coming up on what Patty does when she walks into a vacant property. It's coming, baby. It's coming. I'm working on it now. Now that I have the time, I can do that. Okay.
I know you said that ignorance isn't necessarily bliss, but I read when I was at the time trying to get my real estate license, that if you do know more, you are essentially more liable. So that's why I always kind of held off on inspections. For instance, if you do an inspection and you see that the tenant has guns there and you didn't say anything, because I guess, you know, technically you can have guns, but then something happens, now I'm on the hook. So I
No,
always
you're
thought,
not. No, you are
well,
not.
if there's an accident that happens, and
No,
that's what
you
oh.
are not. Unless you went in there and you pulled that trigger, you are not responsible and your liability becomes slim and none. That's a personal piece of property owned by that tenant. And in the event there could be a problem, you could be liable for death on the property. But that could happen if their dog bites somebody and kill them. That could happen if they drowned in the pool. That could happen if, and you can't tell people they can't have firearms in your house. It's a violation of the Second Amendment.
Okay, so I always thought that
And
to
look at
not.
it this way. If you're not going to allow firearms, are you not going to allow knives?
Yeah, okay.
I'm asking a question in general, okay? But you see what I'm getting at? What if that person is a police officer? Now you're
Mhm.
discriminating against their source of income. Okay? I'm just
Okay.
trying to get you to open your mind. And let me say this out loud to you out loud, okay? People that are responsible gun owners that are in law enforcement, or for lack of a better way for me to say this, they were raised properly around handling firearms. Okay. Number one, they're not going to advertise to you that they even have it because they don't want somebody to come try to steal it. Okay. Number two, they're going to lock it up and be responsible because they know the repercussions of that. Make sense? It's there basically to
Yes.
protect them, nothing else. Okay. And that's me trying to help you understand that I know you see these lunatics running around with firearms, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that's running your house. You get what I mean? Don't make a judgment or an assumption based on one idiot's wrongdoings or several idiots' wrongdoings for that matter. But we have a lot of people in law enforcement in that kind of industry. Sometimes it's security. Okay. Sometimes they work at a pawn shop. It just depends on what it is. But we have a lot of people, especially nowadays, carrying more and more firearms. And have you noticed, and I'm just saying, that when we have a shooting somewhere, we're not having a mass shooting where over 100 people are dying. It may be a shooting where one person died and 7 people were injured. And I'm not praising this, but hear me out, okay? That's one magazine of ammunition and that's it. In other words, someone took them out before it got any worse. I like that. I want somebody to take out the problem and eliminate the threat to all the rest of the humans. That's not fair to them. Okay. So more and more people are carrying their CCW, and you might not know this. More and more people are getting CCW certified so that in the event of a mass shooting, they can help protect other human beings. That's all. I just want you to keep that in mind. Okay. I know that we just had a shooting. They were like, it was a mass shooting. I'm like, mass shooting? One person died, 7 people were injured. That's one magazine full. Yeah, they're pretty accurate with their firing, and that's scary. The whole thing is scary, but I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, that does. Thank you, Patty.
There was a property manager, and I'm just going to share this story because there's only 4 of you in here. There was a property manager and they didn't advertise this story. They didn't talk about this story. I could tell you what state it's in. I could tell you all kinds of stuff, but they pretty much asked everybody to keep it hush hush so that other managers don't panic. This happened 4 years ago. It happened in another state. A property manager went to take someone to go view a unit. In that unit, that person tried to attack and harm her. She ended up attacking him with a 2-inch Swiss Army knife. She got him in the carotid artery and in the jugular up here. Good girl. She saved herself. She saved herself. Remember that. She saved herself. She was her first plan of action. Okay? I don't commend violence in any way, shape, or form. But if somebody grabs you in a room all by yourself, I sure the hell hope you can defend yourself. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Don't be a victim. That's what I mean by that. We're survivors, babies. We're survivors. We're not victims. Got it? So that's just me trying to talk to you. It's okay to take something with you. It's okay to have a plan B when you go to show a property. These are strangers. These are people you don't know, and you don't know what they're going to do. And if you have that funny feeling and you know the hair on the back of your neck stands up, listen to it. Listen to it. That's your intuition. It's there for a reason. Don't ignore it. I could tell you stories of when I ignored my intuition and turned around, took a deep breath, put my big girl panties on and turned around and walked back in a property 5 more feet, only to take off running out the front door because he was coming after me with a shotgun. Okay? Listen to your intuition. That first gut instinct tells you everything. Listen to it. If you guys were men in here, I wouldn't be saying that, because women have a different thought process. Women have a different set of instincts. We pick up on those type of things. Men don't. Listen to your gut, you guys. I call it my asshole alarm. I'll be like, my asshole alarm's going off. There must be an asshole nearby. But that's what I call it, because it's that thing that makes you go, wait, what? Wait, what is that? Why is he carrying a briefcase? What's in the briefcase? Why is it, that instinct? Listen to that, you guys. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. I trust your gut. You trust your gut. Okay. Anybody else have anything? All right, guys, I'm going to go have dinner with my fam bam. Enjoy your evening. I will see you next Wednesday, and we'll continue to do cocktails and conversation, because I kind of like the fact that we can relax a little bit and just ask the questions that we really need the answers to. All right, you guys, you all have a great night. And I will
Enjoy your dinner, Patty.
I will.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
You.
Good night.
Bye.